tomorrow is the opening of training camp. Tomorrow represents the first opportunity for young players on the periphery, which is where they belong, to start pushing their way to Pittsburgh. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. The practice that opens camp is at 8:45 a.m. for those of you locals who are feeling really ambitious and really want to see Sid and Gino and everyone else. And that's actually when to go. Don't hold it against me if I'm wrong, but almost always the veterans choose the first session of the day. That way they can have the remainder of the day to themselves. There will be 3 sessions in all, and one could argue very easily that it's those other sessions that'll tell the larger tale out of this camp. And make no mistake, this is where that tale happens. It's not in the prospect rankings. It's not in development camp. It's not in that 5-team challenge that just took place in Buffalo. It's here. It's when they start getting mixed together, meaning the young and the old. It's in the scrimmages. It's in the preseason games. And from there, it kind of happens in tiers. You got to impress enough early on that they take you more seriously later on, and then you get more visibility. This is kind of what happened to Harrison Brunick last summer. Everyone noticed him in the first week. Everyone wanted to see more. He got into more games. He got more ice time. He got more responsibility within that ice time. And he came within a pinch of making the NHL roster at age 18. That's now. And I'm not going to lie to you here. In my own coverage, in my own perspective on the way this season is going to open and unfold, I'm looking at the now. That includes the young players who can be part of the now. And a lot like Kyle Dubas, and he and I had a really good conversation on this count last week up in Cranberry, I'm also seeing this from the prism that the best thing that can happen to the Penguins is that their now is a success, but that their now is a success in large part because X number of young players made a real impact. Not that you go young for the sake of being young, not that you anoint anybody, because none of this works if you're handing stuff to kids who haven't earned it. To that end, allow me this one day before the first real bucket of pucks gets dropped to remark on that prospects challenge that the Penguins just won for the 3rd consecutive year. And they won it convincingly on top of all else. No, they didn't load up the roster with prospects who shouldn't have been there. In other words, prospects who would arguably have graduated. You could say something about Ville Koivunen being there, but not a whole lot. And then you've got to remember that Rutger McGroarty was hurt. And those are probably the main 2 guys that you would have questioned in that context. What you saw was a group that came with real grit. And by that, I mean not just hollow skating around hitting people for no reason. Players who can actually play the game, but also play it with a non-manufactured edge. They got goals from the players that they wanted to get goals from, meaning their top prospects, Koivunen, Ben Kindle, and so forth. They both showed and utilized superior size in almost every matchup. They got the defending, not necessarily at an elite level, but good enough from a depth and versatility standpoint from Brunick, Finn Harding, and others. They got all the goaltending they could have wanted from Sergei Murashov. But also, as a unit, as a team, such as it is for a 1-week tournament, between that and some talks that I had with probably about a quarter of this roster before they went up to Buffalo, I really got the sense that they feel like their collective, however it is that you'd care to characterize it, was going there to win and will be going back to Wilkes-Barre or wherever to win. And ultimately, they feel like, whether it's realistic or not, they're going to try to get to Pittsburgh together as winners to win here. Now, you can take everything I just said, add a nickel to it, and you still won't have anything worth more than 5 cents. But that's not going to stop me from liking it. I don't believe this was part of some broader plan to get guys who are super competitive or skating around with chips on their shoulders, or not just unafraid to mix it up with the opponents, but eager for it. But I'll take it, and I will like it, and I will welcome it to a Pittsburgh setting that has lacked this for far too long. Guys, if you have been listening to me on this program, if you have been reading my coverage of the Penguins over pretty much the past half decade, you will know that nothing bothered me more. Nothing put me off more than seeing this team become so passive in so many ways. Sure, a lot of this is going to have to do with how Dan Muse wants to approach things. So before I get into saying, wow, Mike Sullivan was really against any of the rough stuff, any of the retaliation, any of the fighting, and so forth, I first want to see how Muse handles it. Muse was not the coach at the Prospects Challenge in Buffalo. Now, Muse was influential on Kirk McDonald and the minor league staff who were, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'd like to see the Penguins resume operating with real teeth to their game. I believe that trait alone is going to buy these kids, should they push through, real time in the NHL to become more accustomed to the game's nuances, to the speed, to the skill level around them, because they can still play a part. They can still accomplish something, wearing down the opponent, freeing up room for Sid and the top 6 guys. And from there, if it's 4 or 5 of them who make it, and by that I mean, like, let's say within the first 20 games of the season, Koivunen, McGroarty, Owen Pickering, Tristan Brose, Philip Hollander, even though he wasn't in the Prospects Challenge, would be a guy really trying to bust into the NHL for the first time. That's 5 out of 20. 5 out of the 20 that you'd be suiting up. And from there, one by one, an Avery Hayes comes along. But yeah, you can tell what I'm doing is I'm taking scattered pieces that might be unrelated and might not have much of a connection and trying to make something of it. Tomorrow, we can dispense with all of that because it gets real. When we come back, J1Q. Hey guys, if you're planning to see a concert or a Penguins game, once the NHL season starts, use the GameTime app to get your tickets. You can snag new ticket deals before anyone if you set it into app alerts. The app is easy to use. No surprise fees at checkout. You can see your seat view before buying, and you're getting legit tickets delivered on time. If you're not much of a planner, you can get last-minute deals on tickets right up to the start of an event. Lowest price guaranteed, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the GameTime app and enter the code DK Penguins in your app profile for $20 off your first purchase. Today's J1Q comes from Damon, and I like this one a lot. He says, Philip Hollander should be able to beat out Nola Chari, Dan Heinen, Kevin Hayes for a bottom 6 role. If not, what are we doing here? Tristan Brose needs to be up by mid-season. See, this, Damon, is the kind of stuff that I'm getting at, both in the positive and negative sense. In the positive sense, yes, Hollander, after the experience that he's had in Sweden, the way he's grown as a two-way forward, the way he's grown as a skater, the way he's matured from a skill standpoint at creating plays, manufacturing offense in tight quarters, seeing the whole ice. These are things that have been shared with me by upper management. Yes, he should be able to beat out the 3 veterans that you cited. And in turn, depending on what his position is or the alignment or the role, then 1, 2, or all 3 of those veterans can just, I'm not saying this to be mean, go. They can be moved in some form. They can be healthy scratches. But where I cringed just a little bit was when you said, if not, what are we doing here? Because that's the kind of question, or that's the line of thinking that would have you say Hollander should be ahead of them regardless. And he shouldn't. He absolutely unequivocally shouldn't. The person who would be hurt the most by winning an NHL job without deserving it is that player who gets it. Because he'll be put in a spot to fail. Because he will have done something, not wrong, but something that represented a shortfall leading up to this. Maybe he lacked this or that to his game through camp practices and scrimmages and preseason games. And he would legitimately benefit from going to Wilkes-Barre with a specific menu of things that need to be addressed and then focusing hard on those things and coming back to Pittsburgh in a much stronger stance. I'll warn everybody in advance, I am going to pound this point relentlessly over the next 3 weeks. Nobody can be getting gifted anything, but if the young player makes a real push and the young player even, let's say they earn a tie with a veteran, well, like they say in baseball, in a close play at first base, the tie goes to the runner. And if you see the young player as the runner, that's the way to go. But yeah, on top of everything else, it's worth emphasizing here that these veterans who are here, not just the 3 that you mentioned, they can go. And if they're beat out, they should go. I appreciate the question, Damon. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow on Camp Day.